What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Dysfunctionally Functional. If you are listening to me live, that means you have found me on iHeartRadio. Yes, I have joined the ranks of the podcasters of America, of the world, actually. And they set up a few questions for me to address. We have discussed which ones I will address and won't address. But the topic of today, as you will see on their platform as well as mine. So for those of you who have never heard my voice before, my name is Teresa De Leon, and I go by T, but you can call me whatever. I am known for a book that I wrote 2 years ago called Dysfunctionally Functional. And I knew that I wanted to write my story many, many years ago. We're talking like 15 years ago, we started talking about the book. My family was actually approached to be on a reality show filmed before the Kardashians. My family was approached here in Houston because we had such an interesting dynamic. So my mother and father were divorced on paper because he had just got out of prison for attempting to kill her. And I wore a wire to put her in prison because she hired one of my friends to kill my father. So he was in prison after he assaulted her, after he bailed her out from having him. She had a solicitation of capital murder charge, and he had aggravated assault and involuntary attempted manslaughter or something like that. So everybody's out of jail and or prison. So my brother was in jail, I was in jail, my dad was in jail, all at the same time. We were all in the Harris County Jail at the same time. My dad was a commissary worker, which was awesome because nobody paid us any money when we were there. We had nobody to put money on our books because we were the people who made the money for the books, and we're all in jail. And my mom, well, she was kind of a cunt, so here we are. So all three of the main Torreses are in jail, and we all had time to sit and think about, when you have solitude, some people find it a very, very scary place to be. And the reason that being by yourself for so long can be scary is because we talk to ourselves. If you say that you don't talk to yourself, you're so full of shit. You may not have conversations with yourself the way I do as I'm going through healing, through some topics that we're going to discuss today that are very, very hard. iHeartRadio already put a disclaimer, so I'm not going to get into that, but this is very controversial. It is very, very hard content to listen to, and please make sure that you are not listening to this in your car. Your kids should be asleep. It's summertime, and if you're transatlantic or anywhere other than America, then it's probably nighttime or morning where you are. Please make sure that your kids are not listening to this if they're going to school or whatever the case may be. This is not a kid-friendly show today. Actually, I'm never kid-friendly, but specifically today on this platform and going forward, this is not a kid-friendly show. Explicits and disclaimers are on the front before you click in. So, please make sure that you're not... someone's already in here. So anyways, going back to my story, since I'm on a timer. All right, there it goes. Now I can see y'all coming in. Okay, so since I'm on a timer, I'm usually not. And I'm very long-winded, and my next interview is at 12:15. So let's wrap this shit up. So my mom and dad were not supposed to live together because for those of you who are not a part of the criminal world or the felonious world or the convict world, whatever you want to call us, we're still human. This was back in the 90s, by the way. And I was 17. They waited until I was 18 and had my child, and then they took me to jail. It was actually my uncle who put me in jail for something stupid. None of the reasons we went to jail actually matter, other than for me to set the stage for the topic. So, Mom went to jail for solicitation of capital murder. I wore the wire to get the evidence. They came, they busted her on TV. It was a whole thing. They arrested her at work. And my dad came home and was really pissed and sold every single thing that we had. We went from being 6 to 7 figures in the bank account to $0, no bank accounts. We used to have multiple bank accounts as a Torres family. I've been married to a DeLeon now for almost 21 years. So this is back in my childhood, my teen years. So then my dad had also got kind of like a dual sentence, time served for doing the harsher crime. So when you have multiple crimes, for example, when I went to jail, I had burglary of a habitation, forgery of a financial instrument, and then 8 months into my sentence, I was still fighting my case. There was a bunch of hot checks between my dad, mine, and my mom's accounts. We wrote them on purpose, but we divvied up who was going to do the time for what. Since my dad had already bailed my mom out, it was between my dad, me, and my brother. And my brother was going to juvie because he was actually still a minor. So it was between me and my dad. And we both had same degree felons. So we just split it down the middle. And the judge looked at me funny. He actually called me from behind where they keep the jailers. We're always behind the courtroom, sitting behind the judge in a cell. So the bailiff comes to get me, and the judge argues with me. He's like, I know that you did not write these checks because the date on the checks that were in question, I was actually incarcerated in this man's jail. So, but he understood the dynamic. He was retiring and he gave me time served. So why is this important? When you commit multiple crimes, sometimes, a lot of times, they will give you time served on the lesser crimes because you're already doing harder time on bigger crimes. So that's what happened with my dad's situation with our youngest brother. He had spanked him, and I'm going to use that word because that's not my story to tell, but the school got wind of what happened to my brother because my brother told them. Then, without any permission from my parents or anybody in my family at all, they felt the need to take pictures of his naked body, and they came and arrested my dad. He had been out of prison maybe a couple of weeks and arrested him, and he went back for another 3 years. So he was back on parole. And again, a reality show is after us. They're offering to pay us shitloads of money. This was before reality TV was a thing. But our family was in the news so much for these crazy ass things. That is how, and I kept talking. I've always been very public. My dad used to call me Mouth of the South, and now here I am. He was manifesting my destiny for me in a very tragic manner, but here I am nonetheless, a survivor. And does that mean that every day is rainbows and sunshines? No, not at all. Not at all. Yes, to the survivors in the chat. We love that. So, my mom could not be around my dad. My dad could not be around my mom. My dad could not be around his son, who was only like 10 years old, 10 to 12 maybe, at the latest 12. But I'm thinking it was more 10 because he was like barely, like he was still in elementary. He wasn't even like junior high yet. I think he was on the cusp. But my dad couldn't be around my brother, couldn't be around my other brother whenever he came home from jail, and we all lived in one house, and it was a house that had a separate entity. So we lived at 1218 and 1216 Elm Street. And the back part of it, there was a whole efficiency back there. They had a bedroom, a closet that was completely separated by a wall and a closet. So we were always rotating in and out of this one big house. And felons cannot be with other felons. Felons cannot be in or around guns unless they are in our home. This is in the state of Texas. Unless they are in our homes and we are on our property and we are defending that property and or our lives or the lives of our family or the people in our dwelling. Now those laws have changed. Now the law states that pretty much anybody can go to a gun show and get a gun with no felony background checks, no background checks at all, and you don't even have to have a fucking license to carry that shit anymore. So, if you're thinking about moving to Texas, you might want to learn how to shoot a gun, stop flipping people off, and don't road rage, because out here in Houston, people are shooting each other. Like, this is real life. But, who else? None of us were supposed to be together. Now, if we would have signed up and said, yes, film our lives, the Kardashians would not be billionaires. The Torreses would be. Because our life is that fucking interesting. The shit that we think is funny, our outside spouses look at us like, yo, you should probably get some fucking therapy. Like, what is wrong with you? So I did just that. And sorry, I'm making sure I'm keeping track of everything. So, what does this lead us to? It wasn't our time to have a reality show because our stories weren't finished being written. I was in a very tumultuous relationship growing up, and as you can see on the title, we will not go back, and that is hashtag. So, iHeart has already warned me, and they can jump in anytime they want. I'm going there. So I've been at Pride all weekend, something that is super positive and it's super emotional. And just like the flags that wave, that's the emotion that you go through in life, living a double life. One, because most gay people don't get to just be born and be gay their whole lives. That's not really how most of our stories go. While my story is not nowhere near, I wouldn't call my coming out story tragic at all. I have always been very true to who I felt I was while I was being fake, and I wore the dresses and I wore the skirts and I did the makeup and the jewelry and all this stuff. I was still very edgy. I've still always been very punk rock. I have a style that's unique in my own. But it was really, really hard for me specifically because my story wasn't finished being written. So what does We Will Not Go Back stand for? I saw the hashtag and there was protesters outside of the parade. They were very respectful. They waited for the parade to end because they were there for the parade as well. Because the hashtag We Will Not Go Back became so viral so fast. And I chose not to address it at that time because I was in the moment. And again, just watching the waves flow from float to float and on people and people painting their entire bodies. Like, I get emotional, excuse me if my voice cracks, but why does humanity only get to be celebrated in the month of June, specifically the last weekend in June? Why is that the only time that people are allowed to be themselves? We used to say that people could be themselves on October 31st. Right? Because we could wear costumes, we could be serial